US troops leaving Afghanistan and Taliban takeover. Taliban taking over Afghanistan is making headlines from August 2021, and we see a few heart-wrenching incidents taking place in Afghanistan under the Taliban rule. The citizens of Afghanistan now feel they are not secure anymore, and they are constantly threatened by Taliban leaders and their rules. This is not the first time that Afghanistan was living in such life-threatening situations. People there live in conditions that are worse than a dictatorship. No freedom for women in any regard, no freedom of speech for any citizen is just the first straw among many. This does not end here. The life of the people is much worse than we ever could imagine. So, in today's video, we are going to discuss the history of the US and its troops in Afghanistan, their decision to withdraw from the army from Afghanistan and regain power by Taliban, what goals the Taliban had in mind regarding Afghanistan and what they actually accomplish. Make sure to watch the video till the end to know the complete details and subscribe to our channel to click the bell icon for more interesting updates. The beginning. In 2001, the United States responded to the September 11 attacks in New York and Washington, which nearly killed 3,000 people. Officials identified the militant Islamist group Al-Qaeda and its leader Osama bin Laden as responsible. Under the protection of the Taliban, the Islamists have ruled since 1996. When they have refused to hand them over, the United States intervened militarily, quickly eliminating the Taliban and pledging to support democracy and eliminate the terrorist threat. The militants fled and regrouped. NATO allies had joined the United States and the new Afghan government took over power in 2004. But the Taliban's deadly attacks continued. President Barack Obama's surge in 2009 helped push back the Taliban, but was not in the long run. In 2014, at the end of the bloodiest year since 2001, NATO's international armed forces ended their combat operations, left Afghan army in charge of security, boosted the Taliban, and captured more territory. US-Taliban peace talks began hesitantly in the widespread absence of the Afghan government, and an agreement was reached in Qatar in February 2020 to draw the US-Taliban agreement did not stop the Taliban's attacks but instead shifted its focus to Afghan security forces and civilians, as well as targeted killings. Their control areas grew. These are basic details of the relationship between the US Army and Afghanistan, but to be more detailed, when Donald Trump entered the White House in 2017, he wanted to withdraw from Afghanistan but persuaded not to only stay, but add several thousand US troops and escalate attacks on the Taliban. 2 years later, his administration was looking for a deal with the Taliban, and in February 2020, the two sides signed an agreement that called for a complete US withdrawal by May 2021. In exchange, the Taliban made several promises, including a pledge not to attack the US troops. The US mission in Afghanistan has come to a tragic and chaotic end. The US Army left the country on August 30th, one day earlier than planned, ended a 20-year occupation, left Afghanistan to the Taliban, left behind at least 100,000 people who couldn't qualify for expedited US visas. A violent time brought the Taliban victory on August 15, hours after President Ashraf Ghani had fled. Taliban leaders took their places in Presidential Palace and pushed tens of thousands of the people into the country's borders. Crowds rushed to Kabul International Airport to take part in the evacuation of foreign nationals and their Afghan allies. Days of chaos at the airport were marked by a suicide bomber attack in August 26, which killed 180 people, including 13 American soldiers. It was one of the bloodiest attacks of war, and the soldiers became the first military personnel to die in a country since February 2020. The collapse of the Afghan government after the United States spent billions in support of it, and the Afghan security forces was a devastating and violent coda for the US military mission in America's longest war. When Taliban fighters conquered provincial capitals, governments fought counterattacks to retake a handful of bases and districts, some former Afghan warlords mobilized private militias, while other Afghans joined voluntary militias, many of which were armed and government-funded. Yet, the Taliban still crossed several provincial districts before moving to Kabul, a terrifying fact for those many who thought who could build a life for themselves under the protection of their American allies. Security, and that they sought relationships with other world powers, including Russia and China, in part to obtain financial assistance. But Afghanistan remains a tragedy, poor, unstable, and many of its residents fear a return of the brutality that the country suffered from 1996 to 2001, when the Taliban ruled. America's failures were numerous. It failed to build an Afghan army that could contain the insurgents, even though the US had spent $83 billion to train and equip the army. During all this time, the people that suffered the most were the residents of Afghanistan. Let's discuss what changes did the Taliban brought into Afghanistan after the troops left. Number 1. Change the name and flag of Afghanistan. On August 16, 2021, The first day after Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani stepped down from his post and the Taliban took over, they changed the name of Afghanistan to Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. This name was also given 20 years ago by the Taliban to show the change of power. The flag of Afghanistan has also been changed to the iconic flag of Taliban with black text and white background. Number 2. Changing the capital city, Kabul. The new Taliban government has started to physically change the capital city, as earlier the whole city was covered with graffiti and paintings of Afghan war heroes, female activists and leaders, but now a fresh coat of paint is going all over that. The US Embassy wall in Kabul was known for its painting of young girls who could have been seen smiling, and the message along the painting read, "I am the future of Afghanistan." However, the wall has now been replaced with the painting of the Taliban flag. Number 3. Dissolving the government and making a new government without any women. The news of the previous president, Ashraf Ghani, fleeing away from the country spread like wildfire. And on the same day, Taliban established the new rule in the government that's been formed without including a single woman in the cabinet. Due to this, a lot of angry women came up on the street demanding their rights and place in the government. Number 4. Drastic increase in prices in food items. The war-torn Afghanistan is facing a dying economy these days. Experts believe that if the new government doesn't take appropriate actions or doesn't get approval and recognition from the international markets for trade and commerce, the country won't survive very long. The cash is already short and people can be seen in long queues of ATMs, and the fuel prices have risen up and it is getting harder to find fuel on gas stations due to unavailability. Number 6. Women suffered the most. Afghan women gained basic rights under the involvement of the US, but now Taliban has imposed hardline Islamist rule on women. Photos and posters about women in beauty salons are being destroyed. Not to mention that there's not a single person representing the women in the new government. Although the Taliban gave assurance that women will get basic rights like education, freedom and everything, but nothing like that can be seen so far. Number 7 is unemployment. People who have worked under the older Afghanistan government are now jobless, while Taliban is hiring new employees. A lot of shops and places were destroyed and burnt down to the ground. The daily wage workers are unable to find any work, and people who assisted US forces are under a tremendous fear. Reports tell that a lot of Afghan residents who had US connections burnt down their documents to protect their lives as the Taliban was searching for homes for such documents. Those who still have jobs are being restricted from going to work. This has really made the life of people in Afghanistan a lot harder. All we can do now is pray for Afghanistan and hope that they can get the strength to fight the enemy. So this is from our side. Please like and share our video. Comment down below and tell us what you think of Biden's decision for more interesting content.